In this video, we're going to talk about the first biological law of German New Medicine. This video will be great for if you are new to German New Medicine or if you're someone who is more advanced. We're going to go into some of the finer details around the first biological law. It's going to help you understand the root cause of all disease. You can take back your health 100% naturally with German New Medicine or Germanic healing knowledge. It's also called that sometimes. You can stop your symptoms really, really fast. Sometimes same day in 24 hours. Not everybody, but I have seen it before. And no more boring diets and no more expensive supplements. But you have to kind of do it properly or understand it properly. And I've seen a lot of videos on the first biological law that, a lot of people are like, you explain it to them and they're hung up on quite a few key issues or key points. And we're going to go over that in today's video. So I've been studying German New Medicine and using it to help people get better from mainly digestive issues since 2021. I used to be a skeleton. I tried everything, did everything perfectly, worked on farms, all sorts of crazy stuff. Started doing German New Medicine poorly with a bad understanding, and I shot up to 180 probably within the first 3 months. And then a year later, I was in the 200-pound range. Now I'm like 210, 220. The way that I take somebody to get, because the biggest complaint I hear about German New Medicine is it doesn't tell you how to resolve the conflict. This isn't me. I mean, I say it as well, but this is what people say in general. Almost everybody that I encounter, their main frustration with German New Medicine is it doesn't explain how to resolve the conflict, which I know is a loaded question, but it also doesn't explain how to deactivate the tracks, or I like to call them the PTSD triggers. And so I help people do that in my 13-day protocol. On my BioLink, I have like a free, like the first day, day 0 is free. And it's essentially everything that I wish my doctor would have told me when I started getting Crohn's and colitis and autoimmune symptoms, and I had no idea what to do to get better. And these are some of the people who have used my course to get better. So what is German New Medicine? German New Medicine was created by Dr. Hammer. It's not a pill that you take. Oh, it's a medicine. Oh, German medicine. Oh, great. He actually wanted to call it the new medicine. Right now, most people are practicing allopathic medicine. There's homeopathic medicine. There is holistic medicine. There's Ayurvedic medicine. There's traditional Chinese medicine. He just wanted to call it, German New Medicine. He had to give it a name, German New Medicine. And I'm sure there was reasons behind why he wanted to call it German New Medicine and not something else. So there are a set of discoveries on how disease actually works in the body. And the scientific chart of German New Medicine, this is kind of like our ultimate dictionary or Bible to refer to. Some of the information you're going to see in this presentation I got from Dr. Hammer's books that are only in German. I've also been reading a lot of Italian books and a lot of French books, and a lot of these authors actually had a lot of one-on-one time with Dr. Hammer, and they were doctors themselves, so they got to see these things unfold in real time. So the first biological law of German New Medicine is called the Iron Rule of Cancer. And I'm going to explain that name in more detail, because when I first heard that name, I was like, what does this, I have Crohn's. Does this apply to me? Like, what's going on here? So the first standard, or the first criteria, is every single significant biological special program, which is abbreviated SBS, and that's like the German abbreviation. So I know that doesn't match up, but it does in German. It originates from a DHS, or a Dirk-Hammer syndrome, which is a serious, highly dramatic, and isolating conflict shock that occurs simultaneously on the psyche, brain, and the organ. So Dr. Hammer calls it a DHS in honor of his son, who was shot by the Italian prince. It's a big, long story. There's actually a Netflix documentary on it. After the death of his son from this super traumatic event, shortly afterwards, Dr. Hammer developed testicular cancer. That was like the start of him making these discoveries, and it took him 20, 30, The bulk of the German New Medicine discoveries, I would say, probably finished before, in the late 90s or something like that. But, he was still fine-tuning things up until his death in 2017. Another word that might throw people off is the psyche. So the psyche is, it's not like psychic, I have psychic powers. Some people might refer to it as the soul or the mind, but it's whatever your brain is doing. It's all the subconscious thoughts that happen that, make my hands move. Is this what I'm doing? Is it conscious or subconscious? I can't tell you. There's so many things going on below our conscious awareness. Like 99% of the thoughts that our brain is having to operate our body are on the subconscious. So on the psyche, the brain, and the organ level, the shock produces symptoms on all three. Like there's things that happen on all three levels of the body. On the psyche, we'll be thinking different thoughts. We're going to be obsessed about this new conflict. The brain, there's going to be activity on the brain. We're going to talk about that more later. And then also the organ is going to start to adapt. And this, the way I like to explain it is, you perceived a shocking event that caught you off guard, and to help you survive, your brain is going to put one of your survival tools, which are organs or tissues, into overdrive to enhance its survival function to help you survive this survival crisis that you are in. And that's highly oversimplified, and each organ has its own, details we need to take into consideration. But that's how I like to explain it in a very simple, easy to understand way. So the first part of this iron rule of cancer that hangs people up is the use of the word cancer. And now these are quotes that I pulled from The Legacy of the New Medicine by Dr. Hamer. So when he first started his research, he was mainly focused on helping cancer patients. So, I don't know, maybe it was 5 or 10 years, but, he was mainly investigating cancer. So when he first made these discoveries, he thought it only applied to cancers. But as he learned more and more, he discovered that it applies to all so-called diseases. And I use these air quotes because we are no longer, in German New Medicine, we don't like to use the word disease. We have to use the word disease to communicate with people who don't know German New Medicine, and even with people who say they know German New Medicine. But there are actually significant biological special programs. And so here he goes on to say, therefore, it is logical. I ran the book through Google Auto Translate, so that's why some of these sentences are kind of clunky. That the iron rule of cancer also applies to all diseases, to all so-called diseases. So I'm just going to leave it at the iron rule of cancer, because the iron rule of all medicine, or the iron rule of so-called diseases, or the iron rule of diseases just doesn't sound cool. So he left it at the iron rule of cancer. I personally think it's confusing, but it is what it is. But it really is a difficult problem to solve, like what word to put here, because modern medicine are experts at creating misleading terminology. They've done it to the term Crohn's disease. Nobody knows what that word means anymore. Is it inflammation here or there? And like disease, what does that even mean? Like what does disease? Oh, nutritional scurvy is a nutritional deficiency disease. What is that? What does that even mean? What is actually going on? Scurvy is easy to cure. You give somebody vitamin C, and the scurvy goes away. I wouldn't, if I had to make rules for these terms, I wouldn't call that a disease. It's just simply a nutritional deficiency. It's not a disease. You replace the deficiency, and you get somebody that vitamin C, and the body goes back to normal functioning. It's not a disease. It's a nutritional deficiency. And then a lot of people will go, well, what about toxins and poisons? They cause disease, don't they? There's a very big difference between injuring an organ, which hurts its function, versus having a significant biological special program controlled from the brain, which is putting the organ in overdrive and out of overdrive, in and out of overdrive, in and out of overdrive, where is a toxin or a poison will just hurt the organ, and then it won't work as well, and the body will like try to heal it. They're two completely different things. We acknowledge that they exist, but we do not think of them as a disease. And again, whatever the word disease means, because it could literally mean anything. You talk to a holistic doctor, it means something else. You talk to, a normal doctor with a license, who knows what it means? It's a term that's not has many different. It's so like I don't know what words to use because I don't know who I'm talking to. Modern medicine is just they're experts at creating mass confusion. And radiation is not a disease either. It is an injury. So let's say somebody gets blasted with radiation. There's injury happening on the cellular or atomic level that we can't see with our bare eyes. Maybe we can see the boils and stuff and all the nasty things later. It only becomes an SSB, a significant biological special program, if that's how the person interpreted. If they were like standing in front of the machine and they saw it go off, and maybe they weren't fast enough to get out of the way, and the brain put the muscles into overdrive, or going in and out of overdrive, because the conflict was I wasn't quick enough to move out of the way, or they had a death fright, which would land on the lungs. But just getting hit with radiation does not by itself cause disease. It only causes injury. And infections, they are actually part of a significant biological special program in SSB. They do not cause disease. And we talk about that more in the fourth biological law. So another thing to be aware of is the use of the word law and iron rule. He just didn't put these words in there nilly-willy. He usually had a very good reason for choosing, using certain words, in his writings. So a lot of people will refer to German New Medicine as like if they're theories. Dr. Hammer, he did his, we're not perfect, but he would only put stuff in here if he thought it was true 100% of the time, or at least 90% of the time. And I'll give you an example on the next page. These are quotes from Legacy of the New Medicines. Legacy of the New Medicine. A big problem with modern medicine and these alternative medicine is that their whole logic structure on how to help somebody get better. It's like, okay. So we'll just go to the next one to show you how logical allopathic medicine is. So modern mainstream medicine, this is how logical they are. So it's kind of like generally accepted nowadays that smoking causes cancer. Smoking causes cancer, okay? Is that so? Okay, well, what's the numbers on that to see if that's true? If that were true, if smoking caused cancer, 100% of the time, if someone smoked, they would get cancer. Is that true? So for only 14%, well, again, they're using misleading language right here, but it says if you smoke, your chances of getting cancer increase by 14%. What does that statement even mean? It's already extremely misleading. But if we get another thing, about 1 out of 15 people, so less than 10%, people who smoke get lung cancer. So a lot of medicine will run with this logic. Smoking causes cancer. Smoking causes cancer. Yet only 5% of the people who smoke will ever get lung cancer. That is the logic most medicines are running with nowadays. The logic I'm not saying smoking's healthy, but what I am saying is smoking does not cause cancer because it's only true 5% of the time. We need to use our brains. We need to use actual logic and actual science. You'll be surprised how much science today is just based off of false assumptions. And we are he want this iron rule It's a law. It's not a theory. Maybe this isn't true 100% of the time, but, he investigated 30,000 cases, and it was true in 30,000 cases that there was always a traumatic event. If it's not true 100% of the time, if it's not true 90 to 80% of the time, like, it really needs to be disregarded as far as your logical assumption. And, this came more easily to me just because I am like a self-taught computer programmer. So I really understand, the brutal logic of a computer. And that's what our brain is. It is a computer. It is a glorified organic computer. And so we need to use logic to deprogram this conflict out of our brain so we can get back to a normal life. Most medicine is based off of false assumptions. So the second standard, or the second criteria of the first biological law of German New Medicine, is at the moment of the DHS, the biological conflict determines the location of the SBS in the brain as a so-called Hammer focus and the location on the corresponding organ. All right. So when Dr. Hammer would look at the brain CT scans, it's only seen on a CT scan. It's not seen on an MRI. It's only on CTs. There would be a ring, and they call it a Hammer focus, in a very specific location, depending on which organ your subconscious mind decided to put. This had to happen in a split second. Split seconds can determine whether you live or die from this event. The subconscious mind doesn't have time to consult your conscious mind. Most animals are barely conscious. They run off of subconscious instinct that get programmed by evolution, I guess you could say. Most of us run off of instincts in the subconscious. And so these are all like super subconscious old instincts we inherited from like our evolutionary line. And they all have a special place in the brain. So if somebody had colon cancer or colitis, there would be activity here in these relays. If somebody had something going on in their kidneys, something would be going on here. If somebody had something in the liver or the pancreas, he mapped out every single disease. And these graphs right here are from the Scientific Chart of German New Medicine. You can get this on amichiddirk.com. He mapped out every disease in the brain. There's more charts. This is only like half of them. And when I did my brain CT scan, I had inflammation in my small intestine, and I had inflammation in my colon, and the marks are right where they're supposed to be. I also had inflammation in my stomach, and that's in another part of the brain, but I also saw the Hammer focus there as well. So the second part of this law is saying that, you can see this on a brain CT scan. You can actually see, what organ was put into overdrive. Like, you can see the activity on the brain level. So the third criteria or standard is the progression of the significant biological special program from the DHS, the conflict shock, to the conflict resolution, to the epicrisis, and then the return to a normal state. They all run synchronously on all three levels, on the psyche, the brain, and the organ. So in this case study, which is from Dr. Hammer's first book, it might not have been his first book, but it was called Cancer, Disease of the Soul. It's an example of somebody's coronary arteries being affected by a significant biological special program. So the conflict shock was, and that actually wasn't specified, but the conflict was their adopted child was taken either by the government or by the biological parents. They had adopted this child, and somebody had taken the child away, and this person was really upset about that. So that's the conflict. We weren't told what the conflict shock was. Like, did cops show up at the door one day and, rip them out of the arms, out of the child out of your arms? Like, what was the shocking moment? That's like really important information that was missing from this case study. But if we were to do a brain CT scan of that person's brain during that time, this is what a conflict active Hamer focus looks like. So during the conflict active phase, these coronary arteries, there's cell loss, and this widens them to allow more blood flow, to give you more energy to take back your territory. And the territory, this person's territory, that's my kid. She's my territory. So sometime early in the year this happened, and then in July, they got the kid back. So when the conflict gets resolved, the cell loss switches from cell loss to cell restoration. So this tissue starts to get rebuilt. Also, the brain relay right here is going to change. This white right here is water, is inflammation. Inflammation is the body's response to injury. It's starting to repair this part of the brain, which we don't really know what's going on there, but I'm assuming that part of the brain is like processing more information. It's this organ is doing more work. It's processing more information. So it's healing not only the organ, but it's also healing the brain. And then also on the psyche level, he's like, yeah. But the psyche comes first. But it all happens at the same time. The psyche, the brain, and the organ, they all go in conflict active to conflict resolution phase all at the same time, which is led by the psyche. The psyche leads the show, even though it's produced by the brain. It's, we don't know what's really going on, but the psyche leads this dance. And you can see as time goes on, it's that this Hamer focus is slowly being healed. So that's what we mean, that these things are running on the same level on the brain, the psyche, and the organ. So a lot of people will say, well, I know a lot of people who are stressed out, but they're really healthy. That, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't right. So German New Medicine isn't saying that stress causes disease. We're not saying that. We're saying all disease, so-called disease and cancers, start after a traumatic event. Not all traumatic events put an organ into overdrive. You have to, until we can put a chip in somebody's head and read what the subconscious mind is doing, like, oh, pump blood. There's like a million things going on at the same time. We have to use our symptoms to kind of guide our logic. Oh, I'm stressed out all the time. I've been stressed out my whole life. Okay, you've been stressed out your whole life, but it wasn't until you were 18 years old until you started developing symptoms. All right, we need to start our investigative work, at 18 years old. Like, what was a specific traumatic event that, started your symptoms, around 18? And also, depending on what organ it is, also will, determine like what kind of questions I ask the person based off of the survival function of that organ. Another example Dr. Hamer used is that, depends on someone's perspective. It depends on whether it is expected or unexpected. So this one person they had like 5 people in their family die within the first year, but they were kind of all expected. Like all 5 of these people were sick. So it was like expected they were going to pass away. So she could at least she was sad, but she could at least somehow prepare for these people, for these loved ones' death. But I guess one of them died, and she was promised this chest in the will, and she didn't get the chest. I think it went to a cousin she really didn't like, so she didn't get the chest. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was the thing that started her colon cancer. In Dr. Hamer's book, The Legacy of the New Medicine, he also emphasizes the difference between a psychological conflict and a biological conflict. We use this term biological. So what happened is you psychologically could not deal with this conflict. And so the subconscious mind decided to put an organ into overdrive to help you overcome this conflict. That's essentially what happened. But we need to start to shift our perspective to this biological perspective. This is a sad picture of an orangutan here that lost his territory. Or maybe it's a female. Maybe it lost its nest. This animal doesn't have a place to live anymore. That's a survival issue, which might be hard for some of us in the modern world to understand because we have cars and we can go somewhere. But, our brain was designed in a time where cars didn't exist, horses didn't exist, and the territory you were born onto was a territory you stayed in your whole entire life. You very rarely left this territory. And so that's the subconscious programming that you have, in the back of your brain, ready to respond to a traumatic event to help you survive. In German New Medicine, we're encouraged to kind of take this evolutionary biology approach to things. We are borrowing programming. We're borrowing programming from our ancestors. Even fish. Our hardware is very similar. It just took different evolutionary paths. And to help us understand, how our primitive brain, decided to respond to these conflict shocks, it really helps me to take this evolutionary biology perspective on things. In this picture, this bird lost its mate. I don't know if this is a male or a female, but if this is a female, how is she going to feed her babies this season? Maybe the nest isn't complete yet. How is she going to protect her territory, without a male? Are there any other males available this season? These are the types of she's sad she lost her partner or he lost her partner. But what are the survival consequences of this deep down? Right here is a bird defending its territory from an invader. And that statement might go in and out the other ear, but the territory is where you eat. The territory is where you put your head down at night and sleep in peace. If you don't have a territory, you are dead. This might look like stupid squawking, meaningless squawking back and forth, but he's defending his territory. And without a territory, you literally can't live. You're not allowed to reproduce. Depending on the species and the behaviors that they have, if he doesn't defend his territory, he's going to be stuck with the all-male flock and, fly around aimlessly. He needs to defend his territory so that, a female can come along and, decide to pair up with him for the breeding season. He won't be able to spread his genes if he does not defend his territory, if he doesn't have a territory. And this is just we don't know what's going. This bird doesn't know, and I don't. I'm just taking a guess. But this is the perspective shift that someone who really knows German New Medicine, they're gonna they're gonna start to see things and think about conflicts, biological conflicts, in this way. Because the average psychologist or like the average person, like, oh, they're being stupid and fighting and they're mean and they're angry and fearful. Like, you're going to get that type of explanation. Whereas, we want, like, he's defending his territory. This could be territorial fear. This could be a territorial loss. This could be a territorial anger. He's defending his territory. So your brain is playing like the biological game of life. And that game is essentially to attain a territory with lots of food and water and like good places to make shelter, like a nice territory. Then you need to defend that territory from others trying to steal it. People are, they're competing with it. They're trying to steal it. They want those resources too. To not get eaten and to get plenty of food and water. Cats and kittens and puppies, they're like competing for resources from the mother. And even when they come out, they're competing for the front teats because the front teats produce more milk. So even from the very beginning of life, you are competing for territory. You are competing for resources from your brothers and sisters. Even when, you're the little sperm, competing to get to the ovary, you're competing with like thousands, millions and billions of sperm to reach that egg. Biology, evolution, it's a death match. Honestly, it's a survival. There's too many people in this area. Only the strongest will survive. That is the game we are playing. So don't get eaten, don't get killed, get plenty of food and water, build a nest, attract a mate, and reproduce. Raise your offspring to help them survive and thrive. Protect your offspring, protect your nest, protect your mate. And then some animals, primates and group animals, they decided that we'll have better chances of survival if we're in a group. And so, humans, it's not just one human controlling all this territory. It might look that way, but it's actually a group of people controlling the territory and controlling the flow of resources in that territory. I know this language might not seem important, but literally all the decisions you make throughout the day are running through this filter. So a tribe or a group of people or a group of animals is going to control a territory and the resources of that territory. The people of higher rank are going to get more resources from the territory than someone who is lower rank. So subconsciously, throughout the day, you're trying to up your rank or at least maintain your current rank so that your society, that your tribe will feed you and house you, and you won't freeze to death at night or starve to death or get attacked. This is the game our brain is playing. Me and my girlfriend have a cat that she likes to pee all the time. And on surface level, someone's like, she's just a pisshead. But we started to notice, like when we really started to understand German New Medicine, peeing is a marking conflict. That's how, so, us humans don't pee on things to mark their territory, but pretty much almost every single other animal pees on things to mark their territory. So we started to look and, she doesn't like to be touched. So a lot, we're like humans, we like to cuddle and stuff. And so when we would cuddle her and invade her little nest, that's when she would she would pee in very strategic locations. She would pee where you would like to sit on the sofa. She would pee in your bed. She would pee in your favorite places. And that was her subconscious instinctual, she's over there, instinctual way of her trying to, this is my territory, this is my nest, don't come in here. Because there's this very primitive part of her brain that, like, this is my space for me to exist. I'm not planning on having kittens anytime soon, but, like, just in case I one day I plan on doing that, this is my space to live and survive. And when I took that information into account, I'm like, okay, I need to build her some more nests. So I built her a nest. I have like a closet over here, and so I built a nest up top in a place that's hers, that no one else goes and can bug her. And she is almost, every once in a while she'll pee somewhere, but, like, the amount of time she pees has drastically reduced just because I built her multiple nests throughout the house for places where she can feel safe. Let's say some guy's cancer, thyroid cancer or Hashimoto's or hyperthyroid started after, they lost all their money in the stock market. I couldn't sell the stocks fast enough. The thyroid, the survival function, the function of the thyroid is to increase our metabolism, either to get something or to get rid of something. So that's how this person subconsciously experienced this traumatic event. That's the way we want to start looking at these stressors, these conflict shocks. That we want to try to find the biological perspective. I work primarily with people who are stuck in the post-conflict resolution phase because of tracks and PTSD triggers. And I've confirmed in multiple books that bringing the traumatic event to consciousness, not just I lost all my money in the stock market. No, the day where you looked at the screen and your bank account was $1 million and now it's $100,000 or $0. Seeing that was the traumatic event. And then the way that your ancient brain viewed it, your biological brain viewed it. I wasn't fast enough to act. Oh, well, thyroid metabolism. Again, it depends on how he the symptoms don't lie. People lie, but the symptoms don't lie. We're not trying to see how this person consciously felt about the conflict shock. We're trying to figure out how they subconsciously felt about the conflict shock. And yes, the subconscious mind is responsible for how we express our consciousness at the end of the day. So this information is from learninggnm.com, a great resource. And it's been confirmed by 10 big institutions and 76 other doctors. And, this is a nice page Caroline has put together. But these aren't new ideas. Dr. Hamer ironed out a ton of details that were not known before. But this whole idea that stress or a big emotional trauma causes cancer and disease is, nothing new. These are just some of the lab studies that claim this, new and old. There's lots. So essentially what I'm doing in my 13-day protocol, and remember, day 0, the first day, you will get for free in the bio link, and it starts I'm rewiring your brain to look at things from this biological perspective. I'm giving you lots of different examples of conflict shocks and PTSD triggers and tracks. You are literally one thought away. Most of you are one thought away from turning off this significant biological special program, putting your gut in and out of overdrive or whatever you're dealing with, in and out of overdrive and causing your symptoms. You're literally one thought away. And this 13 days, it puts German New Medicine in a very easy to digest format. From a gut health perspective, I share the basics of German New Medicine. I really don't get too nerdy about it. I'm trying to help you have that thought as fast as possible with the least amount of effort so you can get back to normal life and start enjoying your normal life again. Eat your favorite foods, go out on dates, spend time with your family, eat whatever your girlfriend or your wife or your mom is cooking for you, or your friends are trying to cook for you. I used to be so self-conscious for how skinny I was. Now I'm like trying to lose weight. It's like I never thought I would ever be in that position. I was always so insanely skinny. And it can happen really fast when you have the right information. And, German New Medicine is great, but the biggest complaint that I hear is that there's not enough guidance on how to neutralize tracks and PTSD triggers and how to resolve the conflict. The majority of this 13-day protocol is bare minimum on the nerdy German New Medicine stuff. And then most of the focus is on helping, techniques and examples of conflict shocks and how to do the timeline, how to find the traumatic event, how to find your PTSD triggers, and then what to do with them. Some certain techniques that you can do to neutralize them and get your life back.